So the Alika app really stemmed from all of my life experiences, really, whether that be coming from a rural area and facing loneliness as a young gay man, to then having cancer at 19, to then feeling lonely in London, to then having treatment in a hospital room for 2 months. I always remember one of the principal feelings was just pure loneliness, because I never had like a best friend that I really connected with up until when I came out, and that's when I really started to forge proper friendships with people. So I was completely distracted by what was happening and what was going on, but I do remember that laced within this experience was, oh, I found a bruise when I'm getting ready or when I'm changing, excessive tiredness, like fatigue. I'm in class and it's 10 a.m. in the morning, just moving into the second class. I've had a really good night's sleep, but my eyes are heavy. They feel like they have weights attached to them. I can't keep my eyes open. Different symptoms were starting to appear. And I just remember like 18, 19, before my diagnosis, just feeling like, why does my body feel like it's falling apart? Why do I feel like a 70-year-old, an 80-year-old? Like, is this normal? And yes, I thought it was normal. I thought everyone would go through these things, because never once was I told about symptoms of leukemia or symptoms of cancer. And I was telling my mum about it, and she said that she'd noticed once when I was changing, she'd walk past my bedroom. I always had my door open. She'd walk past my bedroom, and I was just in my underwear and just in my underwear and joggers, and I had a really bloated spleen. I had a really bloated stomach, but the rest of me was very, very skeleton. And that was just a switch for her. It was just like, this isn't normal. Like, doesn't matter what the GPs are saying. I'd gone to the GP several times and never had any of the symptoms investigated. So she knew something was wrong. She knew me better than anybody else. So it was a Sunday evening, and she said, right, I've spoken to my friends who was a nurse, and they just said that if the GPs aren't going to investigate, you just need to take it into your own hands, take him to A&E and just demand a blood test, just demand investigation, just demand that they do something, because he is not very well. He's clearly not very well. So she took me to A&E, and then 24 hours later I was diagnosed with leukemia. So when we'd got into the haematology department at James Cook, I was seen very, very quickly, started chemotherapy that day, which is quite rapid, but I sat down in front of a consultant, and she told me, and said, it's very treatable, like, it's treatable, we know this very well. It's been the result of millions of pounds worth of research, decades worth of research, and the technology has advanced. We know what we're dealing with here, so don't be scared, don't be frightened, like, we're going to fix this for you. And as soon as those words were said, it was the whole wash of relief. And I think when it comes down to it, sounds quite irrational, but I was happy, because finally the bruises, the fatigue, the pain, the night sweats, all of it made sense, and it all started to slot into place of, that's what's wrong with me. Oh, so I'm not falling apart, like, I've just got this thing that they can now treat. So the treatment that I started with was oral chemotherapy, and I had to take those tablets twice a day. I then had chemotherapy injections once a week. They didn't need to hook me up to an IV, because it was different chemotherapy treatments, thankfully. But I was on that chemotherapy treatment for about 4 months. But I think the biggest thing is it's just the effect on mental health, and I think that is so hard to quantify. It really is. It's really hard to sit here and say, like, oh, so this is what I was feeling, because my feelings were completely contradictory. I'd wake up in the morning and think, actually, no, I feel okay for someone who's just been diagnosed with cancer, but then an hour later I'd be feeling horrific, and it'd be a 180 in terms of my emotions. I'd wake up feeling really positive. An hour later I'd be furious, I'd be shouting, I'd be screaming at my parents, at my brother. And half an hour later I'd be like, oh no, I'm okay now, I'm fine. Let's go out for a run, let's do exercise, let's go for a day out. 20 minutes later, but no, I want to get back into bed. It was an emotional whiplash. It was, and not just for me, but for everybody else around me. I didn't get put into remission when I moved down to London. So when I stopped treatment, I was still on maintenance treatment. I was watching weight essentially. So it's just, let's keep checking up on you. So when I moved down to London and was studying business and working PR, I was also having hospital checkups every Monday. and I had those checkups every Monday for 4 years. It's like returning to the scene of the crime. And I don't want this to sound disingenuous or any way controversial, but my friend said this to me the other day, which rings so true, that when somebody experiences something traumatic, let's say rape, there is no way anybody would ever ask that person to return to that scene, to where that happened. When they tell their story, it's done in a safe space where people are trusted, where they can disclose. But never would somebody ask that person to return to that place, that time. And that's what cancer patients and survivors have to do all the time, is return to the scene of the crime. And it's so hard, it's so difficult, because you're constantly living with trauma. So no wonder I decided to close off to it. This is what I have to do, it's routine, it's like going to the gym. This is what I have to do this, leave, done. Great, I've got a party tomorrow. I'm gonna go see my friend in Soho House for dinner on Wednesday. Great, fab. And that was it, that was life for 4 years. The next time, when it was like, right, so it's now back and here it is, it was 2017. I have to have chemo for 2 weeks straight, every day for 2 weeks straight. I have to be in hospital for 2 months. I will be stripped of my hair, stripped of this health that I've worked so hard to build up after my first diagnosis. I remember returning home and Googling, like, what are my healthcare rights? Can I reject treatment? So I was like, I feel and look fine. And it's that identity crisis. It keeps coming up. And it was the stages of grief. So as soon as the denial went away, then it was like, of course, I'm going to do this. And then had my bone marrow transplant in January 2018. I had to be in an isolated room, which is a word we've heard so much of this past year. I was in an isolated room, so I was only allowed a nurse and a doctor in at any one time, no family, no friends, no nothings. And that was something that I don't really know. Again, how do I put that into words, what that feels? It's like I was in prison. I was imprisoned. I'd willingly walked into a prison and was forced to stay in this room feeling the worst I've ever felt, both physically and mentally, without that support network. So the moment they said, next week we're going to discharge you, was, oh, I've done it. It's like, oh my God, I've done it. Just one more week. And I remember feeling euphoric that week of, I'm going home. And I just remember when I was living at my parents', I didn't have rent to pay, I didn't have bills to pay, I didn't have to worry about work. I just remember feeling just a breath of fresh air, being able to have that stress-free experience after the most harrowing thing I've ever experienced. So the Alika app really stemmed from all of my life experiences, really, whether that be coming from a rural area and facing loneliness as a young gay man, to then having cancer at 19, to then feeling lonely in London, to then having treatment in a hospital room for 2 months. And our target audience is mostly young people who are digital natives, who have grown up with digital. And I think something that I'm really passionate for, I like to do, is not just to forge connections within the cancer community and help people find the community that they really need to help them get through cancer and get beyond cancer, but create visibility for communities that don't have visibility within the cancer community. Members of the LGBT plus community, members of the Black community, members of these communities that don't have visibility, whether that be in the charity sector, whether that be in the health sector. So I want Alika to be a safe space for all people diagnosed with cancer, and especially people that sit at intersections and vulnerable intersections where they're completely ignored by some of these institutions. So my message to people supporting people going through cancer is, don't be afraid of it. Cancer is a really scary topic. It's not very inclusive. It's so hard to talk about it and to accept that fear and to accept the negativity, so people just shut it out. But I think what's really important is to talk about it. The advice I would give to members of the LGBT plus community would be to go and have symptoms checked. Exhaustion is not normal, and we shouldn't normalize exhaustion. No matter what age you're at, no matter what you're doing in your life, no matter the stress or the pressures that you are facing, exhaustion is not okay. as your body changes, like track your body changes. Like when you're in the shower, like feel your body all over. And I know it's quite difficult for some members of the community because they don't feel like that their body is theirs, because they may be in the wrong body. But it's crucial for your physical health and then your mental health to really reflect on who you are and go through that journey and go through that process. And social media helps with communication, but it doesn't help with creating smoke and mirrors, with allowing people to tell a narrative which is skewed in one way. If you were to look at my social media, it would be, oh yeah, look at me, I'm the founder of this, I'm the creator of this, I went through this thing, but now I'm fine. When that's just actually not true. Like, I struggle nearly every other day, but I do it because I love it. Like, I do it because I'm so very passionate about the work that I do and the people that I get to meet. So I would say is, if you want to use your story, be aware of that it is really difficult, but there are always people willing to listen to your story to create change for other people.